Welcome to the Word on the Street podcast, coming back at you again. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, the year 2000. Chael, as always, coming to you live from Austin, Texas, other parts of the world as well. I have my usual co-hosts, of course, Jake from the MMA podcast, and I got Ross, the best Jew in the business, Finkelstein. How you doing, fellas?
Doing well.
Doing real well.
We also have some great guests on the show. We have them on right now. We're going to get straight to them. First is a friend. He's also, I like to think of him as a co-host, one of the co-founders of the show. He is the living legend himself, Coach Jamie Huey. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm good, fellas. What's happening?
Yeah, the usual, just getting over a bunch of stuff, sicknesses, weddings, UFC 166. I'll talk about that in a second, how I actually saw UFC 166 in Houston the last couple fights. I had to sneak away from my brother's wedding. Nobody was the wiser. I'll also talk about how, I swear for a second, I saw Junior Dos Santos shapeshift into a reptilian alien or some crap. I swear I saw something weird. I'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about tough Brazil, Chael Sonnen versus Vanderlei Silva. But first and foremost, we have a special guest tonight. I don't even believe it myself. He is, I'm saying it right now, one of the greatest welterweights in UFC history, currently fighting at 170. He is a personal hero of the show, none other than Mike Pierce. Mike Pierce, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, guys. Good to be here.
I can't stress enough. I'm actually nervous here. Usually don't get this way. You know, we've interviewed legends such as, you heard him, Bob Sapp. But now we got Mike Pierce, who I think is a contender, an uncrowned champion. I can't say enough about it, but enough about me. Mike, first things first, what is the latest damage report on the leg after the fight with Palhares? Is it still looking like it'll rehab on its own, or are we looking at some surgery? What's the latest report?
Yeah, well, the good news is the doctor doesn't think it's going to need surgery. I got the MRI results back a little bit ago. And the knee, is just having a sprained MCL on the knee. The ankle, though, had more damage on the outside left part of my ankle, where the ankle bone's at. I have an almost completely torn ligament there. But, the doctor said, with the amount of swelling that I had, which really wasn't that much, and me having the ability to kind of walk around on it as normal, he doesn't think it's going to need any surgery. He told me to come back and see him in 2 to 3 weeks, kind of reevaluate to see how the healing process has been going, and kind of go from there and figure out when it's appropriate to get back in the octagon and start whooping some butt.
No, I hear you, man. I feel for you. I've been suffering with a bad knee for almost 2 years now. Need to get that rehab myself. Are you current? I gotta ask. Does a fighter like you? I mean, you're a tough guy, but I mean, it sounds like some stuff's torn there, sore, swollen, inflamed. Does a fighter like Mike Pierce take any painkillers, or are you just toughing through it?
No, I didn't take any painkillers, not even after the fight.
Damn.
just a little bit of ice and compression, and that's about it.
Oh, that's cool. Well, all right. So if you're not all doped up, what does a fighter like Mike Pierce? What do you do when you're sidelined with an injury? I mean, do you get to catch up on TV shows and movies? Are you eating a bunch of pizza and cheeseburgers? Are you playing video games? What's the word on the street?
Well, a little bit of that, I guess. I get to watch some TV shows, but which is what I was doing just before I got the call. I almost actually forgot about this. I was just sitting there watching a TV show, and I was like, who's calling me at 9 o'clock? Oh, yeah. Word on the street. So, yeah, I get to do a little bit of that, but, the smarter thing to do, which I've been doing, is just taking care of my body, just doing the icing and the rehab, taking it easy so I can get back on my feet and get back in the octagon as soon as possible. But it allows me to catch up on some other things too that I love doing. I love, going to the coast. I love spearfishing and all that kind of stuff. And I did ask the doctor if, that particular activity was going to be too much or not. And he said no, because, when you're diving and doing all that sort of stuff, you're not really putting in a lot of load on your legs and joints and stuff. So it should be fine. And it's been a lot of fun. And just like I said, waiting for this injury to kind of get better so I can get back in there.
Yeah. The word on the street was that you were somewhat of a gamer. Is that true? Are you a video gamer? What's happening?
Yeah, I love playing games. I actually I used to play, as a kid. I started out with the Nintendo Entertainment System and then Super Nintendo and so on and so forth.
Man.
But, as the years kind of went on, I got more interested in playing games on the computer because you can, do different things to the games, mod them and add certain things to them and play them a lot differently. I have more control over that than, say, the console-based games. And, I like playing games every now and then, but I haven't been so much into it in the past few months, but need another good game. You got any good games?
Everybody's playing Grand Theft Auto 5, and I got to say...
it hasn't come out on PC yet. That's what I keep waiting for.
Yeah, I'm going to mod the hell out of that when it comes out, too. I can't
Absolutely.
wait for that. But no, it's worth playing on console, though. In the meantime, it's probably going to take a long time for them to figure out that PC shit. I don't know, but yeah, that'll definitely.
Well, and half the time they always come out with the PC version. It's always buggy as hell, but whatever, it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely play that when it comes out. Well, on PC, then I don't think I can recommend anything off the top of my head. But anyway, sorry. Moving on. Well, actually, Coach Huey, Mike Pierce, he seems to be a pretty laid back, fun guy, but he's a little bit, I've noticed in the media and stuff, in the public spotlight, he's a little quiet, Coach. He's kind of the opposite of a Chael Sonnen in some ways. So, Coach, can you vouch for Mike? Is he as good of a guy as he seems, or is there some kind of hidden darkness that he's been keeping from everyone?
Oh, no, Mike's as good as they come, man. We've been friends for a long time, and Mike is definitely a kickback dude until the bell rings, and then it's all business. Ironically, you guys were talking about Grand Theft Auto, and I've never been a video game guy myself, but I can't remember where we were. I was with Mike. I was cornering him for one of his fights, and we were in the hotel, and he was playing Grand Theft Auto. That was one of the few games I could actually watch somebody else play and had fun doing it. I can't remember where
it's one of those games.
It was, yeah. We were, running cars over old ladies and all sorts of crazy stuff. So it was actually, yeah. But definitely. Mike's a good kickback guy until the bell rings, and then you don't want to be the guy on the other side of the cage looking at him. That's for sure.
Oh hell no, man. Now, Mike, I was doing some research, some interview research, being the consummate journalist that I am, and I noticed I was looking at your fight record, which is excellent, by the way. I noticed it says you fought Mike Dolce in 2007. Like, I didn't even know. I didn't even know Mike Dolce fought. So can you tell us about that fight? What happened?
Oh man, there's a lot of history with that one.
Because I know the ending. I just want to hear.
So Mike Dolce and I, ironically, when I was still an amateur, was one of the guys that first cornered some of my amateur fights. And so he was a coach for a little while I started off at Team Quest. I got away from there, was at a different gym, became pro, and a lot of guys at the gym, or at Team Quest rather, didn't really like, for whatever reason, me leaving and going to this other gym, and Dolce and I just, for whatever reason, really kind of got off on the wrong foot and didn't like each other there for a while, and we had words back and forth on, one of the local fight forums about looking forward to fighting each other. And it was this big drawn out thing. We finally got to fight each other. And, I told him before, I was like, dude, I don't even want to knock you out. I don't want to submit you. I just want to beat your ass for 15 minutes straight. Like, I'm not even going to look to submit you or knock you out. But, ironically, he was the guy that was always known for knockouts and having quick knockouts. Mm-hmm. And, at the start of the fight, actually before the fight, I raised my hand to see if he wanted to touch gloves. And he just had like this disturbing, like sadistic, I want to murder you look in his face. And he just shook his head no, like, no, I'm just going to go out here and fight. Like, okay. And so the bell rung, we go out there, and, my whole game plan was just to throw a right cross as hard as I could, whether hit him or not, just go for the takedown, because I knew that he wasn't very exceptional on the ground. And so I threw that right for all I was worth, and it just caught him perfect right on the button, and I got the knockout. It was a one-punch knockout in 5 seconds. And so that set the sport fight record for the fastest knockout, and it's one of the fastest knockouts of all time in MMA. So
definitely,
yeah, that was.
Like, I couldn't believe it when I saw it, man. And then I was like, Mike Dolce, what the fuck? So your game plan was just like the basic schoolyard fight. Just throw something as hard as you can, and it actually worked. Are you still friends with Mike Dolce, or is he just hanging his head in shame and reminded of that every time he sees you?
No, we're on good terms now. In fact, by the time the fight happened, we were kind of over it anyway, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. But of course, after the fight, we were cool with each other. To talk to him off and on, obviously since then, and he's totally a great guy. I don't have any problem with him at all.
That's awesome. Do you know if there's a video out there floating around on the internet of this 5-second fight?
There is somewhere. I've seen it. And you can actually see that it was 5 seconds because they have like the little video time lapse thing at the bottom. So you can just look it up, sport fight, type in my name and Mike Dolce's name, and I'm sure it'll come up on YouTube.
Nice.
Somewhere.
Is it safe to say that was the easiest fight you've ever had?
Well, yeah.
Not a knock against Mike, but I mean.
No, but I mean, if you're in there for only 5 seconds, how hard is it,
Yeah, man. Sorry, Mike, but he went on to bigger and better things. It's probably better. It was probably better for him, right? In the end.
Yeah. Well, he certainly found his niche. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. He's a beast now at what he does. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a tycoon, and he's nailed a new market. Actually, it's weird, but thank God. Mike Pierce, you if I'm correct, you do have kids, is that right?
I have one daughter, yes. She'll actually be 2 November 2nd.
Okay. I always like to ask any fighter with kids this question, like MMA parenting sort of. What approach are you going to use about bullies? What are you going to teach your daughter, or if you ever have a son, about dealing with bullies? Are you going to tell them to take it or fight back? What's...
Well, of course, you're not going to look. I dealt with my parents taught me how to deal with bullies too. You don't take their crap. You try and do the right thing first. Tell a teacher, tell an adult, grown up, somebody, to maybe take care of the situation first. But if you're kind of in that situation where you're kind of backed up against the wall, they start beating on you. You don't let somebody beat on you. You defend yourself. And so if it comes to that, yeah, fight back for all you're worth. And so I don't think that's a bad tactic with a bully or anybody that kind of crosses that line.
Yeah, I interviewed a fighter named Keto Andrews. He was saying he told his kids, not to fight back, but never to punch another kid in the face for some reason. No punches to the head. I don't know why. I should have asked him. But no, I'd say...
Yeah, I'm not all about that. I'd say do whatever it takes to, make sure it doesn't happen again.
Hell yeah, man. That's Mike Pierce for you. Jake has a question for you after this. I just have another one here. I checked out the quote, official UFC rankings earlier today. And for some damn reason, you're not listed in the top 10 welterweights. Meanwhile, there's a guy like Nick Diaz who's listed at number 6, despite the fact that he's lost his last 2 UFC fights, and you have the better UFC fight record. Do you even bother looking at the rankings? Is it a joke to you? I'm just wondering what your take is on that ranking system.
I had to deal with ranking systems and people's opinions of who they think is number 1, 2, and 3, and so on forth. With wrestling, that stuff never mattered to me at all. I don't care what the UFC rankings are either. Yeah. They mean nothing to me. They're just somebody's opinion or several people's opinion of where they think guys stack up in the division. And frankly, I don't care what they think. I'm going to go out there when those doors close and beat the piss out of whoever's across from me. I don't care where they think they're placed at in the lineup or ranking system. So, I just could care less about those. I don't know who's in the top 10, really. I couldn't tell you from 1 to 10 who it is, but there are certainly guys in there that make me scratch my head as to why the hell they were there in the first place or why someone thought they deserved to be there. But again, it's more of a joke to me than anything.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. At least in the welterweight division, this thing is all screwed up. You've gotten screwed. Let's face it. Everyone knows you've gotten screwed on a number of big fights. Just bad decisions that didn't go your way. I mean, you've gotten screwed. I'm sorry to say it. If you could rematch anyone from the past, though, who would you want to fight again so there wouldn't be any more questions about it? If you had to name one,
man,
there's too many to name. I know, like. You've been downright robbed more times than our friend Yao the Truth, who lives in Queens.
Yeah. Well, as far as the rematching, I mean, there's only 2 people I think would be fun to rematch, and that would be Hendricks, and oh God, who else would I want to go against? Jon Fitch. He's another one. My second fight in the UFC, Jon Fitch. Yeah, both those guys were tough. My head really wasn't in it for the Hendricks fight. I was still pretty, new, and then finding my groove in the UFC when I fought Fitch, and really obviously grown from that fight. So I think either of those guys would be a lot of fun. But the Koscheck fight, I feel I won that one. It makes no sense for me to go back and beat him again, so I don't really care.
Oh, yeah. I have to disagree. It makes perfect sense for you to go back there and beat him some more, just for the fans. I would love nothing more than to see Koscheck get destroyed and retired by you, man. You got to do it someday. If they ever offer it to you, just do it for me, for the streets.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
Jake from the MMA podcast, you're on with UFC Welterweight Mike Pierce. What do you got, Jake?
Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much for taking a minute with us. I got to start with a very, very serious question. Why the hate against console games? I don't understand you PC nuts.
Well, it's not really hate against it. I just like having more control to do what I want to the game. Like, if you take Bethesda games, for example, whether it's the Elder Scrolls series or you take a look at the Fallout series. I mean, that game is so moddable and so awesome on the PC that it would be a waste of time to do it on a console, because you can have so much more fun on a PC. That's just one example. But I really like the aspect of the PCs because, you can still do all the online multiplayer stuff just like you can with the consoles, but you have, kind of more reign to do what you want on like the storyline, the single player version.
True. I'll switch it back up to MMA. For my money, Mike Pierce versus David Mitchell at UFC 162. That was the most horrendous placement of a fight on a card ever. I can't believe you were on the Facebook prelims. And I've said it a million times. I'll make it 1,000,001. Mike Pierce is the most underrated fighter in the UFC. Do you have any theories on why you're such an underrated welterweight?
No idea, man. I've been trying to be that more exciting fighter, the guy that wants to go in and, have wars or have nice, fantastic finishes, whether they be TKOs on the ground or that one-punch knockout, whatever it may be. And I've tried doing that in the last several fights, and it hasn't really seemed to get me anywhere. So we'll see, man. I really don't know.
Word. Well, I got to ask you about your last fight. Were you planning on engaging Palhares on the mat, kind of like Alan Belcher did, or was that something you didn't want to do at all?
Yes and no. If it went to the ground, I felt good enough to avoid his one and only threat, which was the leg lock. When I engaged him right at the start, I do my homework. I've seen the guy isn't very active on his feet. He just kind of, is flat-footed, doesn't move around a lot. And I came out there. I wanted to do a lot of quick movement, see what he did, and then go in for my attack. Well, I saw he obviously wasn't moving around. It was the same old stuff that I'd seen on film. And so I led with a jab, left hook, cross, and I landed them all solid, man. And I knew that he was hurt, and I knew I rung his bell. After you've done this, enough times, when you've connected on somebody and when they're hurt. And, I was just like, oh my God, that happened so quick. And I was like, okay, well, I know that he's hurt. And I saw his head kind of drop and kind of hunch over. I was like, oh man, maybe he's almost out. And so I kind of rushed him a little bit, thinking all I had to do was throw, a handful more punches and the ref was going to be pulling me off in the story. But I didn't quite have him as hurt as I thought I did. And, the first thing the guys do when they get hurt is they go with what they know, and what he knows is leg locks. And so as soon as I, jumped in there and cracked him, he went to what he knew and jumped to that leg lock. And the first one I got out of, I started to get back up. At that point we were kind of up against the cage. I was trying to get out, and he dropped to another one again, which was kind of tricky. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. And, up against the cage like that, I couldn't really roll out of it. And he had it cinched in there pretty deep, and, that was that.
Word, yeah. Palhares now faces a huge obstacle career-wise as the UFC, Bellator, World Series of Fighting, and now KSW won't sign him to a fight. Are you at all sympathetic of what he's going through now?
No, actually, I'm not, because
Hell yeah.
like I've told other people, here's the thing. So I didn't really dive into this guy's history of, what he'd done before the UFC or any of that kind of stuff. All I knew is that he got popped for holding a submission in the UFC once before too long, and he got fined or something. And I knew about that, but I didn't really know about all the other stuff from before. I guess before he was in the UFC at other fight promotions, he had a history of doing the same thing. At jiu-jitsu tournaments, he had a history of doing the same thing. Even at Brazilian Top Team, Murilo Bustamante came out and said in an interview not too long ago that, that's one of the reasons he had Palhares leave the gym, is because he was always hurting people or holding things too long, and him and Murilo would always argue about it. And so I didn't realize how much of a problem it was. And so once all that stuff really kind of started to surface, well, no, I don't have any sympathy for the guy. I mean, it's no different than some guy getting 10 DUIs and then finally getting busted on the 11th. I mean, it was just bound to happen at some point, and this is just the final nail in the coffin for him.
I totally agree, Mike. The way that fight ended was disgusting. Two more questions, and then we'll pass it back to Ramses. We touched on your fight against Mike Dolce. A month before that, you actually faced current UFC middleweight Mark Munoz. Do you still keep up with Mark? And what do you think his chances are this weekend as an underdog against former light heavyweight Lyoto Machida?
Yeah, I mean, me and Mark are good friends. It was really a weird situation for me to fight him. I was at that point fighting at 170, believe it or not. And I literally took the fight on 2 days' notice. I was working construction at the time up at OHSU Hospital here in Portland. And I got the call saying, "Hey, do you want to fight this weekend?" And I'm like, okay. And he's like, "Oh, it's just some guy. He's coming down from heavyweight." Well, I started doing research on this guy. I was like, I knew who Mark Munoz was. He's a national champion, like I'm not dumb. And, I was looking him up on SureDog, and he had fought in like the month before at heavyweight, and he was coming down to 205. Well, I didn't have to cut weight at all, and he was cutting weight from being a heavyweight a month before. So that fight was very odd. I mean, he ended up winning a decision. It was kind of cool for me. I mean, him being a national champion in the very first round, I double-legged him. I had him over my head, slammed him. He got back up. I had his back, and then I belly-to-backed him on his head. So that was kind of my highlight of the fight. But, it went back and forth. He took me down at the very last round. We were both slugging it out for all we were worth, and he ended up getting the decision. But, he's a tough dude. I think his chances against Machida are really good. I think his ground is really good. His stand-up's come a long way. I mean, since he's actually gotten into the UFC, he's really developed a lot as a fighter. So, with Machida, though, you just got to watch out because he's got that quickness and kind of unorthodox style that you got to watch out for. But I think Mark will do all right.
Yeah, Mark is a dangerous guy, one of my favorite middleweights. Final question, Mike. Thanks again for coming on. And I got to warn you, this one definitely cuts deep. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
I'll go with the one horse-sized duck.
That's a wise answer. Very wise. Ramses?
It's a lot of meat. Mike Pierce, we will wrap it up right now. But I have to say, this past weekend I went to UFC 166 in Houston. I went there a little bit late. I showed up. My first live UFC fight that I ever saw, actually, Gilbert Melendez versus Diego Sanchez. It was crazy. It was war. People are calling it the greatest fight of all time. But I was there, and I still say that your fight against Seth Baczynski was a bigger, more epic war, at least to me watching it. That fight was amazing. You guys went the distance, fought the whole way hard. I thought somebody was going to drop dead. I didn't know which one until the very end. I was wondering, just because I'm a big fan of that fight, can you talk about the Seth Baczynski fight a little bit? Did you ever think you were in trouble in that one? It looked like he got you good at one point in the second round, I believe.
Well, first off, I don't think that fight was one of the greatest ever because I got kneed in the face too hard, man. I didn't like that at all. Yeah, that fight with Seth, I mean, he was a lot tougher than I expected. I mean, that guy can definitely grind. It was like a David and Goliath. I mean, the guy's 6'3", I'm 5'8", one of the shortest guys in the entire division. So that was one obstacle right off the bat I had to get over. And the one that I learned later on is that he doesn't really have to lift his knee up very high to crack me in the face when I'm shooting in on him. So, you know, I mean, that was really kind of the only time where I think I was in any trouble is when he kneed me. But, you know, I remember very clearly thinking, wow, that one really connected. As I was holding on to his leg, because I still got my single leg, I was just waiting. I was like, wow, okay, he really cracked me on that one. I was just waiting to see if I was going to bleed from my face from where he hit me, and then I saw the one drop of blood kind of land on his knee. And I was just thinking to myself, God damn it, he made me bleed. So I finished the takedown. But yeah, man, I mean, especially in that last round, I really started to feel fatigued and everything, and then come to find out later, you know, they sent me to the hospital to get checked out and everything, and I found I had a tiny, tiny little fracture in my orbital where he kneed me. But that really was not a big concern to them. You know, they said, oh, yeah, that'll heal fine. You don't even need surgery for that. But they found some air in my chest cavity that's obviously not supposed to be there, and they were worried about that, you know, on my flight home from Australia to the States at altitude, you know, it expanding and putting pressure on other organs and stuff. So they were trying to figure out, like, how that got in there or, you know, why it was there to begin with. And so I had to, like, swallow all these weird liquids and, you know, have all these images taken to figure out if there was a hole somewhere in my esophagus or wherever, to figure out how that air got in there. And they didn't really find anything. They don't know how it got in there. They don't know if it happened, you know, in the fight. They said it could happen from, you know, him hitting me or me lifting him up. Any kind of strain like that could have had like a little pinhole size hole somewhere to allow that air to get in there. But while that air was in there, it really kind of it reminded me of when I fought in Colorado when I was at altitude, and I really started to feel that, you know, lack of oxygen. Yeah. And so, I don't know, I didn't like it because I knew I was in shape. You know, when I was at the hospital, my resting heart rate was 42 beats a minute, so it wasn't a lack of me being in shape. It just, I couldn't take the right amount of breath, you know, because I had that air inside my chest cavity. It was really weird.
So they never figured it out?
No, they never figured out where it came from, and it healed up just fine. The air went away on its own. So everything was fine. It hasn't happened since.
Yeah, well, all right. We'll just forget about it then. No problem. But yeah, you're not giving yourself enough credit. That war with Seth Baczynski, it played out like a Rocky movie, man. I'm telling you. And just a quick comment from coming in from the Twitter, Yao the Truth, one of our friends. He just wanted to let you know. He just wanted us to tell you that he thought you beat Koscheck as well. Yao is the dude from Queens. He's an amateur, aspiring MMA fighter, winning all these jiu-jitsu medals or whatever. So he's a big fan of you, it appears. And I also agree with you, man, on Palhares, man. The dude was a repeat offender, needed to be stopped. He is like a bad character out of a bad martial arts movie. It's ridiculous. He's the dirty fighter, like personified. And it's good that we got him out of there and that we're keeping you in. Hopefully you'll be back soon, as soon as possible for us, man. But, you know, for right now, relax. Get yourself a PS3. Add me on the network. We'll play some GTA 5. I'm getting a crew together, man.
All right. Sounds like fun.
All right. We'll go ahead and let you go. Thank you again for all your time, Mike Pierce. Is there anywhere that people can contact you and reach you? Or you keep in touch with the fans or not? What's up?
Yeah, just on Facebook and Twitter. It's the handles at Mike Pierce 170. Same thing for Facebook, Mike Pierce 170.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, UFC welterweight Mike Pierce, one of the best in the business. We will hopefully have you on again soon. Wishing you nothing but the best. Say hello to the family for us. Well, hopefully Jamie Huey's still there. Are you still there, Coach?
I'm still here, folks.
Okay, we'll get to you in 1 second. But, Mike, thanks again for coming on, man.
Not a problem, guys. Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
All right, Mike.
Bye.
There he goes, Mike Pierce.